Hey guys, so here's part 2 of the 5.6. We are going to solve fractional equations. Now notice here, we don't have a fraction equals another fraction, so we cannot cross multiply. So instead, what we're going to do is factor the denominator, so do all these things that we've done with adding and subtracting. So like factoring the denominators, finding the least common denominator, and then we're going to kind of change it up from there. Okay, so first we have to factor the denominators if it's possible. A lot of things are if possible. Well, let's look at our denominators. We have x, 4, and x. Well, we definitely can't factor the denominators. So we go on to the second step, which is to find the LCD. Now remember, to do the LCD, whatever's in the denominators or in one of the denominators has to be part of it. Notice that two of our denominators has an x. Now, because they have the same amount of x, we just need that. Now, also notice that one of our denominators has a 4, so that needs to be part of it. So our LCD is 4x. Okay, here comes the next step. So our third is going to multiply both sides and really all numerators by the LCD. So you might want to save that instead. So we're going to multiply every numerator by LCD, okay? So that means I'm going to have, so I'm going to rewrite this, okay, x, and then plus 7 over 4, right, and then equals negative 9 over x. I'm going to do this in a different color. So our LCD is 4x, so I just multiply all the numerators by the 4x, okay? There we go. Now, from there, I'm going to multiply, and if possible, simplify each term. Okay. So if I do 4x times 5, that gives me 20x over x. Then plus, I do 4x times 7, that gives me 28x over 4. And then negative 9 times 4x gives me negative 36. It looks like x. And then that will be over x. Okay. So now I simplify. So on my first fraction, my x's cancel out. So I'm left with 20. 28x over 4 simplifies to a plus 7x. And then negative 36x over x, the x's cancel. Now, my last step is basically to solve. Okay. So I'm going to take my 20 plus 7x. And I just solve for x there. So I'm going to move my 20 over, subtracting it, so I get negative 56. Divide both sides by 7, so I get negative 8. Now remember, before I box this, I do need to plug it back into each denominator in the original equation, just to make sure I don't get 0. Okay, so negative 8 is our answer. So if I plug negative 8 into the first denominator of x, I just get negative 8, so that works. Now if I plug it into my third, because my second doesn't have a variable, it doesn't matter. So I plug it into my third one, to my third fraction in the denominator, I get negative 8 again, which that works too. So that means x equals negative 8 is my solution. Okay, let's go ahead and do another one of those. Okay, first step, we need to factor the denominators. Okay, once again, if we look at each of these, it doesn't work, okay? So now what we're going to do is we are going to find the LCD. Now, this is what I would like you to do. If we look at this one, remember, if we ever need to make anything into a fraction, we can just put it over 1. I would like you guys to go ahead and actually pause the video and try this problem on your own. Okay, let's see what you got. So we didn't have to factor any of the denominators because we have a 1, x minus 5, and an x. None of those are factorable. 2, we find the LCD. Okay, first notice I have an x, so since that's part of one of my denominators, it has to be part of the LCD. Then I have an x minus 5, And then really I have a 1, but that doesn't really need to be included because that's assumed. Okay, so now we're going to multiply each numerator, or every numerator, by the LCD. Okay. So I'm just going to rewrite this. So I have 1 over 1. So remember, anytime you need to make something into a fraction, put it over 1 minus 8 over x minus 5 equals, I'm going to kind of leave myself some room here, 3 over x, because I know I'm going to multiply. Okay, so our LCD is x and x minus 5. Multiply that by here and here. Okay, now we need to simplify. So I multiply and simplify. Okay, so on the top I have x times x minus 5. I'm going to go ahead and multiply things. So that gives me x squared minus 5x. And that's just over 1. And then minus, and actually you might not want to factor things out or multiply just yet, because we might want to cancel and then we can multiply. So I'm going to leave it actually as is. There we go. Then minus 8x, I'll multiply that. And then x minus 5 equals 3x, and then x minus 5. Okay, so now let's talk about what do we get when we simplify. Now the first one, x times x minus 5, we get nothing. I'm going to go ahead and multiply there, so I get x squared minus 5x. On our negative 8x, x minus 5, the x minus 5's cancel, so we get minus 8x. Don't forget that negative there. And then on the last one, the x's cancel, so actually I get 3 times x minus 5, which gives me 3x minus 15. Now I have this, I'm going to go ahead and solve, so that's my last step. So just rewriting this, and then I'm going to combine like terms and all that stuff. Okay, so I have x squared. I'm going to combine my like terms, so negative 5 and negative 8. That's going to give me, I think, negative 13. And then equals 3x minus 15. Well, notice we have a quadratic, so we got to set it equal to 0. We are going to have that middle term, so we can't really take the square root. So either we're going to factor or use the quadratic formula. So I'm going to subtract 3x and add 15 to both sides. So I get x squared minus 16x plus 15 equals 0. So to factor this, the only two numbers that will multiply to 15 added to negative 16 is going to be a minus 15 and a minus 1. So now I set these equal to 0 and solve. I'm going to do it over here so I have more room. So x minus 15 equals 0, x minus 1. So I get x equals 15 and x equals 1. Now, before I box these, I do need to make sure that when I plug them back into any variable in the denominator, that I don't get something undefined. So let's start with a 15. Now I got to go back up all the way to the original here. So if I plug 15 in for x here for my x minus 5, I get 10, that works. Same thing if I just plug it into x, I get 15, so that works out. So I get to box it. Okay, then my next one will be the 1. So if I plug it into the x minus 5, I get negative 4, that works out. And then of course, if I plug it into the 1 for the x, that works as well. So both solutions work. Okay. So what I would like you guys to do, there is going to be a part 3 to the video, so make sure you guys watch that and take notes over it.